The corridor lights buzzed and dimmed as Ethan cross-walked through the towering hallways of Vorton High Institute, his footsteps the only sound in a place meant for thousands. The biometal walls shimmered faintly, their alien sheen pulsing with ambient life, and every now and then a pair of luminous eyes peered at him from recessed alcoves above, only to vanish the moment he looked back. He didn't flinch when the first slime pod hit him, cold, viscous, and humming with mild static. It slid down his shoulder, a fluorescent green streak across his academy uniform. Then came the laughter, dry, guttural, and unkind. "Oh, look, it bleeds chlorophyll now," sneered a voice from above. Ethan sighed and looked up to the balcony 2 levels above, where 4 alien students were hunched over the railing, their scaled or plated limbs jittering with amusement. Zorik Vel stood at the center, unmistakable even in shadow, tall, broad-shouldered, with fractal tattoos winding down his translucent neck ridges. He leaned in just enough for his elongated mandibles to catch the light. "Did your Earth tech not detect that little trap?" Zorik asked mockingly. "Maybe next time ask your primitive sensors." Ethan wiped the slime with the inside of his sleeve and kept walking. No reply. No eye contact. "Must be a malfunction," Slyn muttered, his eyes blinking in alternate sequence. "I heard humans barely process real-time data. Probably running on instinct. Or fear," Zorik added, his voice colder now. "That's what defines your kind, isn't it? Fear and fire. That's all you've got." Ethan said nothing. He turned a corner and vanished from sight. Down a quieter wing of the Institute, the atmosphere changed. The ambient murmurs and pulsating architecture grew softer. Here, the walls weren't constantly shifting. A door slid open with a soft sigh, and Ethan entered classroom L12, still empty as expected. He took his seat, second from the back, right side, where the light didn't hit directly. Always the same place. Minutes later, the classroom filled with noise and movement. Zorik and his circle entered loudly, tails dragging, exoskeletal limbs clacking against the alloy floor, and scanned the room for Ethan. Finding him already seated and silent seemed to disappoint them. "Maybe he sleeps here," Grash said as he passed by, chuckling to himself. Ethan kept his head down, fingers tracing patterns across his tablet screen. Not drawing, just calibrating, focusing. The door sealed again, and a taller figure entered. Cale Thorne, the only Terran-born professor at Vorton High. Tall, sharply dressed in dark synth fiber robes, and marked by a surgically repaired jaw from the First Perimeter War, Cale looked almost too human for this place. That made him a target once too. But unlike Ethan, he was no longer underestimated. Cale's eyes swept the room. They paused on Zorik, then shifted to Ethan. For a moment there was recognition, then neutrality returned. Today's lesson, Cale began, will cover nonlinear tactical adaptation. How species evolve responses to unpredictable threats in hostile environments. Some of you think you're beyond such lessons. You're not. Zorik smirked, but said nothing, as the hologrid lit up with examples of wars fought in binary star systems and asteroid belts teeming with adaptive nanofauna. Ethan's mind wandered, not in disinterest, but in deep memory. He remembered Earth skies gray and endless, and the silence in the mountains where the old barrack stood. He remembered the cold breath of air filtered through a gas mask and the trembling hands of his brother clutching a training rifle. A vibration hummed through his tablet. The field trip alert. Confirmed. Earth excursion, scheduled for rotation cycle 9. It would be the first time most of his classmates set foot on his homeworld. As Cale dismissed the class, chatter broke out immediately. "They say humans still burn wood," one alien sneered. "I heard they grow food in dirt," another said, disgusted. Zorik turned to Ethan, standing over him with a glint of amusement in his eyes. "Looking forward to showing us your planet of mud huts and carbon fires, Cross?" Ethan looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time all day. His eyes, cold and steady, didn't waver. "You'll see more than you're ready for," he said, voice even and low. Zorik laughed, but it rang hollow. That night, the dorm wing was almost silent. Most students had retreated into their Neuralink pods for stimulation or dreaming. Ethan, however, remained seated at the edge of his bunk. From beneath his bed frame, he pulled out a reinforced box keyed to his biometric ID. It clicked open with a mechanical chirp. Inside lay a single object, a weathered burnished badge, engraved with a stylized eagle and a Latin phrase no one here could read. The badge bore scorch marks, one edge slightly melted from plasma exposure. Ethan's thumb ran across it slowly, almost reverently. He held it close to his chest and closed his eyes. The room darkened as the lighting system dimmed for the night cycle. The badge glinted faintly in the low light, a silent reminder of another life, another Earth, one that had not yet shown its teeth. Outside his window, far beyond the walls of the alien academy, a blue-green planet waited among the stars, waiting to be underestimated. The descent toward Earth began with silence, not the respectful kind, curious and hushed, but the heavy, disdainful quiet of disappointment. From behind the thick-glassed observation windows of the Academy's orbital shuttle, the alien students gazed at the blue and green sphere below with barely masked contempt. Zorik sat with his arms crossed, long fingers tapping a slow, bored rhythm against the armrest. "Honestly, I expected more," he said. "It looks small. Fragile." Grash snorted beside him. "Primitive planets always wear disguises. Blue skies, green forests, until you scan beneath the crust and find rot." Tarnal Zek, usually one of the louder voices in their group, said nothing. He stared at the rotating planet with a pensive frown, eyes flickering faintly as data streamed through his ocular implants. Atmosphere reads denser than expected. Electromagnetic fluctuations are unusually high. Radiation belts are inconsistent. Ethan, seated alone several rows behind them, glanced up but didn't speak. He held a small cloth pouch in his lap, fingers gently kneading it as if calming a restless thought. The shuttle breached the upper atmosphere in a cone of heat and static, trembling as it plunged toward the surface. The clouds parted. Below, vast coastlines unfurled like veins of silver light, framed by dark forests, glowing cities, and sprawling networks of interconnected towers. To most of the class, it was a dissonant sight, too elegant for a supposedly backward world. Cale Thorne stood as the shuttle stabilized and began its descent glide. "Welcome to Earth. Official classification, Terran homeworld. Cradle of humanity, and, if you're paying attention, the reason half of your governments have signed neutral coexistence treaties." A few snickers broke out. Cale didn't smile. The other half haven't learned yet. The shuttle touched down with a low hydraulic hiss on a stark black landing pad ringed with perimeter towers. No guards stood at attention. No drones hovered. Instead, a single human figure awaited them. Tall, broad, wearing a minimalist charcoal gray uniform and a face devoid of expression. He carried no visible weapons, but his very presence radiated control. "Commander Reeve," Cale announced, stepping forward. "Terran Security Liaison." The man nodded once, eyes scanning each student with quiet scrutiny. "Welcome to Earth. Please remain within assigned perimeter zones. Do not interfere with autonomous units, and do not assume we are unaware of your capabilities. We've studied your kind longer than you've studied ours." Zorik raised a brow ridge. "Is that meant to impress or intimidate?" Reeve didn't flinch. "Whichever keeps you alive." As they moved toward the terminal, Ethan drifted to the rear of the group. One of the security staff caught sight of him and offered a subtle nod, nothing more than a moment of mutual recognition. Ethan responded with a slight tilt of the head, silent greetings from a different world. The first destination on the itinerary was the Earth Defense Museum, a fortress-like building half submerged into a coastal cliff. Inside, the temperature was cool, the lighting minimal, casting long shadows across displays of ancient uniforms, kinetic weaponry, and tactical gear that predated galactic contact. "Humans fought with metal?" Slyn whispered, pointing at a curved blade. "No plasma edge. No neural resonance." "They still do," Ethan said softly. The group turned. Zorik narrowed his eyes. "Why?" "Because blades don't jam," Ethan replied. And when you run out of charge, instincts matter more than engineering. Kale activated the main exhibit, a sprawling 3D hologram of the siege of Solis Ridge. Alien fleets surged through space, overwhelming Earth's outer defenses. But then came the resistance, human pilots diving into enemy cruisers with single-seater crafts, infantry using terrain, atmosphere, and gravity against superior numbers. Tactical brilliance over brute force. Tarnal leaned forward, visibly intrigued. This isn't just desperation. This is design chaos. Kale nodded. It's called asymmetrical warfare. Earth didn't win by matching strength. It won by making strength irrelevant. Zorak scoffed, but the tension in his posture had changed. Outside the museum, the students were guided through a nature preserve, a domed region where Earth's biosphere had been restored to near-pristine condition after centuries of damage. Towering redwoods, crystal lakes, and creatures unseen in alien records. A massive feline beast, a panther according to the guide, watched them from a branch, its muscles taut beneath black fur. The students flinched as it dropped soundlessly to the ground, only to retreat as Ethan stepped forward. He crouched, extended a hand, and spoke softly in a language no translator patch captured. The panther blinked slowly, then turned and slinked away. What was that? Tarnal asked. Coexistence, Ethan replied. Something most forget the moment they touch a gun. Back at the Earth Academy guest quarters, the class dispersed for rest. Zorak lingered by the panoramic window, staring out at the horizon where the city lights merged with starlight. Something gnawed at him, a sense of displacement he couldn't shake. He didn't understand this world. It wasn't weak. It wasn't primitive. It was dangerous in a way he hadn't anticipated. In the hallway, Ethan was halfway to his room when he heard footsteps behind him. Tarnal, you could have let him fall today, the alien said. Ethan paused. Zorak, you pulled him back from that ravine when the terrain collapsed? Why? Ethan considered. Because some lessons are better learned breathing. Tarnal frowned. You're not what they think you are. Ethan smiled faintly. Most things worth surviving aren't. Later that night, Ethan stood alone on the observation deck above the guest quarters. He pulled out the cloth pouch again, this time revealing a small emblem, silver, triangular, etched with microfractures. The symbol of Project Revenant, long decommissioned in public records. Except it wasn't. His communicator pulsed. A voice crackled through, firm and familiar. Phase 2 ready. Transmission key accepted. Proceed as planned. Ethan looked up at the stars. They were beginning to see, but they hadn't learned yet. The Earth Defense Academy loomed like a fortress, carved into the spine of a coastal mountain range and bristling with technology that didn't flaunt itself, but whispered of its potential. The alien students arrived under high security, escorted through silent corridors where walls absorbed sound and the lights adjusted to their retinal preferences. Despite its calm facade, the Academy exuded a quiet menace, purpose-built and patient. Zorak shifted uncomfortably as the group was led into a tactical simulation chamber. A deep sense of unease had settled in him since their arrival. It wasn't fear exactly, it was worse. Doubt. The kind that coiled inside his pride and gnawed at the foundations of his certainty. This is where Earth trains its defense units, Kale announced. Recruits begin at age 10. By 16, most are combat proficient. By 18, they've either failed or been invited to continue. Grash muttered, we train from birth in the Vortengard. Kale nodded. Yes, but you train with inherited superiority. Humans train with desperation. It creates resilience. Ethan stood apart near a black-paneled interface that flickered with biometric signatures and archived battle data. The system accepted his touch without resistance, a silent acknowledgement of his clearance. Tarnal watched him more closely now, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. There was a difference in how Ethan moved here, how the air seemed to shift slightly around him. Earth fit him like armor. A hologram flared to life, displaying a simulated battleground. Ruined buildings, irregular terrain, electromagnetic interference. Conditions carefully chosen to disrupt conventional alien tactics. Volunteers. Kale asked. Zorak stepped forward, teeth bared in a half-smile. Let's see how your warriors fare against something more evolved. A squad of alien students joined him, Slyn, Grash, and two others. They materialized within the simulation, their neural feeds syncing with the terrain. Then came the opposition. 6 Terran cadets, indistinguishable in black armor with blank visors. Silent. Still. The match began. At first, Zorik's team had the advantage, faster, stronger, and better armed. They moved with precision, using thermal vision and elevation. But within moments, their data feeds began scrambling. Static washed over their optics. Biofeedback faltered. Motion trackers reversed. Then came the humans. Not charging, circling. Cutting lines of retreat. Redirecting movement. Planting false signals. One by one, the aliens were neutralized, not with brute force, but with brutal efficiency. Zorik lasted the longest, forced into hand-to-hand combat with a smaller, quicker Terran who fought with grim grace and no hesitation. When the simulation ended, Zorik stood alone in the center, panting, bruised, and wordless. Kale's voice broke the silence. Strength is nothing without adaptability. The battlefield doesn't care what world you came from, only whether you leave it. Ethan watched Zorik exit the simulator without meeting anyone's eyes. The arrogance had cracked, maybe not shattered, but something within him had shifted. Later that day, as the class toured the upper levels of the academy, Tarnal caught up to Ethan in a corridor lined with honor plaques and mission records. "Who trained you?" he asked. Ethan's answer was quiet. "Everyone who survived." Tarnal paused. "You're not just a student, are you?" Ethan didn't respond. That evening, in the students' temporary dorm quarters, Zorik sat with his head bowed, jaw clenched. The others had grown quieter around him, unsure how to treat a predator who had been outmatched so publicly. Pride among Vortons didn't bleed, it shattered. The whisper of a plan began to circle the group. Not a direct challenge, no. Something subtler. A joke. A reminder of hierarchy. They'd teleport Ethan somewhere remote, nothing lethal, just inconvenient. Something to humiliate him. To remind him he wasn't one of them. Just a glitch in the system. Grash said, smirking. He disappears for a few hours, gets a little dirt on his boots. No harm done. Zorik hesitated, his confidence wavering. But anger won. Fine, but we don't hurt him. No, Slyn agreed. Just humble him. The following morning, the class prepared for an off-grid biome survey, standard Earth terrain scans, mostly forested. Easy cover for the prank. The teleport anchors were preloaded. A few extra lines of code, just enough to divert Ethan's location data without triggering alarms. As the field instructor gave final clearances, Ethan approached the pad, scanning the interface. Something blinked. He stopped. His eyes narrowed, barely a flicker, but it was enough. He stepped off the pad. "Kale," he said calmly, "check the matrix alignment." Kale frowned, walked over, tapped the screen. For a second, his expression tightened. Then he turned to the class, voice sharp. "Everyone off the pads. Now." Too late. A surge of static swept across the field. Teleport is triggered. Students vanished mid-step, their signals warping, scattering across multiple coordinates. Kale barked orders, his voice now edged with real concern. Signal split. Someone rerouted the tether array. Ethan was already moving. He tore open the side panel, rerouting the emergency recall channel. Their positions are outside safe zones. Kale stared at him. "You know how to override?" "Yes." "Do it." From the forests, distant and windswept, alien students began to reappear on scattered surveillance screens, confused, panicked, and not alone. The region was a restricted zone, one of Earth's reclamation preserves where mutated predators roamed and the terrain shifted unpredictably. A relic battlefield transformed by war and time into something Earth had sealed off. And now they were trapped in it. Ethan's voice was low and steady as he worked. "I need 10 minutes to trace all signals." Kale nodded. "You've got 5. As emergency drones deployed and retrieval shuttles launched, Kale glanced at Ethan with a look that held more than urgency. "You've done this before." Ethan didn't look up. It's not my first cleanup. One by one, the screens flickered with distorted feeds, trees towering like giants, skies stained red from the soil's chemical vapors, and eyes in the dark. Not one set, dozens, and in the middle of it all, Zorik stood, surrounded by shadows. Alone. The wind howled through the shattered forest canopy, bending the gnarled branches like the skeletal fingers of a long-dead beast. Smoke clung low to the ground, thick with the scent of ozone and decayed vegetation. Zorik stumbled, one arm cradling a gash across his chest, his other gripping a branch for balance. His breaths came ragged, sharp, misting in the cold air. Behind him, the trees shifted. Something large was circling. He turned in time to see a shadow, low, quadrupedal, and fast, dart between the trees, silent as thought. Another shape moved to his left. The terrain was alive, hunting him. This wasn't a prank anymore. This wasn't a joke. This was Earth. Zorikvel. Came a voice, crisp, amplified, and eerily calm. Hold position. The clearing erupted in light as 3 drop drones screamed through the air overhead. From their underbellies descended compact figures in matte black exoarmor. The lead landed hard, dust curling around his boots. He removed his helmet. Ethan, Zorik stared, disoriented. How did... I tracked your biosignature. Your system was broadcasting an emergency pulse before you even knew it. Another crash sounded in the trees. Ethan raised a fist. The drones extended their targeting arrays and bathed the forest in pulses of sound and light. The creatures retreated with animalistic growls, intelligent but not suicidal. Zorik collapsed to his knees. You're not supposed to be here, he whispered. Ethan knelt beside him. Neither are you. Behind them, 2 cadets lifted Zorik onto a stretcher as Kale's voice buzzed through Ethan's comm. We've located the last 2 signals. Tarnal's just east of your position. His vitals are dropping. Ethan didn't hesitate. He turned, sprinting through the brush. The exosuit responded to his thoughts, silent and fluid, leaping over obstacles and absorbing impact like skin molded to fury. The path narrowed. The air thickened with heat and static. Tarnal lay in a hollow, his body half covered in slick foliage, his breathing shallow. A wound, deep and unnatural, tore across his thigh. Something had tried to drag him. Ethan dropped beside him and triggered the medical patch on his wrist, pressing it against Tarnal's skin. The seal hissed and fused, stabilizing the bleeding. You're real, Tarnal muttered. They all said human stories were inflated. You're not just strong, you're trained. You live in the fight. Ethan checked the perimeter. We were never trying to impress you. We were trying to survive you. A flicker of movement. The brush parted behind them, too fast to be wind. Without hesitation, Ethan rose, aimed, and fired. The weapon emitted a silent flash, and the creature behind the foliage fell with a muffled shriek. Tarnal's eyes widened. You killed it in one shot. Because I didn't hesitate. Extraction ships arrived minutes later, dark and angular, settling like birds of prey. One by one, the students were retrieved, scanned, and stabilized. Their silence said more than their injuries. None of them had expected this, not from the terrain, and certainly not from Ethan. Zorik sat against the hull of the med ship, his bandaged arm twitching. Ethan approached, removing his armor piece by piece, revealing the Terran uniform beneath. Simpler than the alien battle suits, but cleaner, leaner, designed for movement and decisions made under pressure. I thought your kind were all talk, Zorik admitted, his voice lower, steadier. But you fight like death taught you something? Ethan met his gaze. It did. It taught us we only get one chance. So we don't waste it proving things to those who won't listen. Zorik looked away, then nodded once. Not in defeat, but in understanding. When the shuttle returned to the orbiting Academy station, no one mocked Ethan. No one met his gaze with arrogance. Slyn and Grash avoided his path entirely. Even Kale walked alongside him now, not in mentorship, but with the quiet dignity of 2 soldiers who had survived different wars under the same stars. In the debriefing chamber, the head administrators reviewed the footage: silent forests, deadly fauna, and the lone Terran moving with surgical precision through a world that had once broken empires. "Mr. Cross," one of them said, finally, "it appears your presence has accelerated cross-species understanding." Ethan said nothing. Later, in his dorm room, he stood before the small window that looked down on Earth. His communicator chimed. The voice on the other end was clipped, formal, and unmistakably Terran. "Project Revenant Phase 2 approved. Confirm readiness." He looked down at the patch on his uniform, subtle, gray, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. The Revenant symbol etched into the stitching. He pressed his thumb to the interface. "Confirmed." The line went dead. Kale appeared at his door not long after, his face unreadable. "They know now," he said. "Not enough. They saw who you are. Who we are." Ethan exhaled slowly, watching the distant glow of Earth's atmosphere pulse like a heartbeat. "Let them remember us," he said. "Not as victims, not as anomalies, but as the reason they check over their shoulders before stepping onto our soil." Kale nodded. "You did more than prove yourself." "I didn't come to prove," Ethan said quietly. "I came to warn." He turned from the window, the night behind him and a galaxy ahead. The silence between stars had never felt so loud.